Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited to host this panel today and discuss the human aspect of digitalization. Our mission is to enable every company with a customer-informed operating model, and CX Panda is an excellent source of knowledge I encourage you to use on your journey to customer centricity. I'm very grateful to our panelists today joining and sharing their point of view on digitalization, empathy, and technology. So let me introduce our esteemed ladies here. Oriana Ascanio. She's a customer experience strategist, creative problem solver, and collaborative partner focused on doing more with less. And I can absolutely second this. Her energy is just amazing. She's known for her collaborative spirit and finding the best solutions, technology or otherwise. Sharon Boyd, a long-standing member of CX community, Chief Customer Experience Officer, designing, leading, and implementing CX strategy at Meta B3E. She has a very strong background in digital and cultural transformation. And she's known not just for her explorer spirit outside of work. I'm let you in on a secret. She's trained as a pilot, but also for her exploration of new groundbreaking technologies and tools to help customer centricity. Welcome, Sharon. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Sandra Thompson, my favorite expert on emotional intelligence. And she says she has found a place professionally doing work that doesn't really feel like work. We don't quite believe that because Sandra is very hardworking and she helps businesses and individuals grasp what it means to be human and what it means to have organizational empathy. And this is really the subject that I would like to explore today in more depth. We are unfortunately missing Bérangère Roux today, who is an amazing expert in UI and UX. She is absent for personal reasons. She has to spend time with her family, and we absolutely respect this. And Olga Shvarova is meant to join us, and I think she's having technical difficulties. So hopefully we will see Olga here because she is an expert in technology transfer and commercialization. She's served as a Chief Innovation Officer at Science Center of Excellence, advisor, Apex Center of Technology Transfer, and a jury member for the European Innovation Council and SMEs Executive Agency. And I would very much value Olga's perspective today. Hopefully she joins us all right, because she is the business representative. She is the one who translates customer centricity into commercial outcomes and sees how technology and empathy help with that. So welcome everyone. Welcome to all of our participants. I'm very much excited for this discussion today. We see, how many times have you seen the word digital in the last 2 months? Probably about 200 million times. Innovation in tech is rapid and prominent. Specific AI technologies have been developed to understand and respond to human emotions. It's a little bit scary, but also it's quite exciting. We have natural language processing algorithms helping us. Will they be able to help us detect customer sentiment and adjust responses? We have AI-powered systems which will strive to provide empathetic and emotionally intelligent interactions. Is this really true? Is AI becoming emotionally intelligent? I'd like to address this to Sharon.
Well, I asked ChatGPT this question to see what AI would respond. So AI's response, ChatGPT's response to this was, yes, it's true that technology, especially AI, is rapidly evolving. And one of the areas of interest has been in understanding and responding to human emotions. It then maps out 4 different types. So emotion recognition, NLP and sentiment analysis, empathetic response generation, human AI collaboration. But the interesting bit of its response is it says, however, it's crucial to understand that while these AI systems can simulate emotional intelligence and empathy, they don't just feel emotions as humans do. The AI's understanding of emotions is based on patterns in data and predefined algorithms. They don't possess consciousness or genuine emotional experiences. So they don't truly possess emotional intelligence in the way humans understand it. So, yes, that's the trajectory of travel, that absolutely there'll be more emotional intelligence in the way that AI is built and programmed and responds. But will it be in the same way that we understand it? At the moment, no. And there's a whole piece around consciousness, etc., that as AI and technology progresses will really come through. But at the moment, we don't understand completely what that will look like. But as we know, there's the emotional side of a human is very complex. There's lots of debate around this, even in, forgetting tech for a second. But if you look at it through a tech lens, if we're trying to nail down what an emotion is, even in the world of psychology, etc., it's quite difficult. There's a lot of debate of understanding what actually is an emotion. Why is it? Do we ever understand, or can we identify an emotion completely discreetly? We know, for example, even the word bittersweet as an emotion of feeling happy and sad at the same time. We know things like anger being a secondary emotion. There's no end of emotions that sit underneath something like anger, such as fear or frustration. So there's so much that goes on around this whole arena of emotion and what makes human emotion, and delving into it, that's very difficult to start looking at it through a binary sort of lens. How do you start to program something to understand something that we humans don't fully understand? We're all on this journey of higher emotional intelligence, and we know how important that is as leaders, especially in customer experience. Emotional experience is paramount, and understanding how that works and what a customer or patient or a user feels, but trying to nail that into an algorithm or rules that a computer can replicate, that's a whole other ball game. So yeah, it's going that way, but it's quite complex. And there's obviously it's a bit of a double-edged sword as well, because when we think about emotions, you can influence things with emotions. We can influence an outcome, or we can influence the way that a customer feels so they have a happy interaction. But also there's the other side of things, manipulation, for example, that also comes into emotion. So there's a lot around this kind of world that we need to really think about and get in front of when we think about how AI works in the world of EQ and emotional intelligence.
Great point. It really makes me think about the influence that AI will have on businesses. It is going down the road of handling more and more customer queries. Customers may or may not be aware that it's a robot or technology handling those queries, and the emotional response may be very different to a human. So, do you think we as humans will get used to that less emotional response and alter our emotions accordingly? We will expect less emotional interactions from companies. Do you think that's possible? Sandra, I'd like to address this to you because you're a particular expert in organizational empathy.
It's what we would call a can of worms. So I think there's something we need to draw people's attention to, and it's building on Sharon's point. Every single one of us experience things completely differently as a consequence of our socialization, the meaning we attach to things, and the context in that moment. And so the opportunity for an organization to emotionally connect with people is varied. And what I mean by that is one of the foundation stones of emotional connection is just to listen and to play back and to ensure that the customer feels that they have been heard. So you could argue that at the very base level, if AI is offering something that, and they would have to declare that you're not speaking to a human, you're speaking to a system, because otherwise you get into the whole realms of trust and etc. So I think if you bring in a system that acknowledges someone, gets things right, and helps them progress, then I think that you are building trust. You're starting to use AI in a sensible way, but you have to think very much about the individual needs of the customer and how even them being heard in their own way is the first step. Because to Sharon's point, we are hugely complicated. We're not rational. We are ad hoc. We are bizarre and beautiful and messy. That isn't something that's programmable, because I might show up this afternoon in one way, and then in an hour's time, I might show up in a completely different way. But here's the thing: if the system talks to me tonight in the same way as it did this afternoon, and I have shifted, it's going to annoy me.
Very much so. And that brings me to another point. We are kind of focusing on AI handling customer inquiries, and that's complex in itself. What sorts of inquiries, in which circumstances, how it recognizes you and sees you as a customer, but also that there is a whole behind the scenes application of AI for customer experience, where we use it for data analytics, personalization, creating offers that would appeal to a customer as a human being with specific needs, desires, and emotional landscapes. So, is this a safer way to apply technology? We've already discovered that applying technology for customer interactions may or may not be safe. But for analysis, is this a good way to go? This is where organizations have to go. Oriana, what do you think?
I think that it ultimately depends on a myriad of things, starting by the specific use case of the technology, what underpins, what the actual undercode of the tech is, the purpose for what has been used. Of course, we already see lots of examples of organizations using data analytics in really compelling and interesting ways that I wouldn't classify as unsafe. So let's think, for example, about a supermarket loyalty card, right? So your supermarket might be, keeping track of what transactions you're spending on, and suddenly go, oh, you're buying a lot of cat food. Maybe you might be interested in car insurance, for example, right? And so that is all a product of analytics. I think the interesting question is around the ethics of who is driving the analytics, right? So what is it that we actually want to accomplish? And for sure, as technology becomes more capable, where is it that we're wanting to go to, right? And that's difficult to answer because I don't know that we can necessarily fully imagine yet where we're going. I don't know that any of us has a clear picture of the final destination. So there's this piece about, awareness. And I suppose in my mind, the best we can do is to not take ethics for granted, right? So, a lot of the time people would think about ethics almost as a health and safety check, right? That you do it once and then you forget about it. Well, this is an instance in which set it and forget it does not work, right? So you got to be constantly going back and thinking, well, hang on a minute, is this really where I want to drive? Is this really how I want to use this? And who am I serving? For me, that piece about service is really important. Of course, customer service, right? But let's not forget what the ultimate outcome is.
Mm. And as a customer experience strategist, Sharon, do you think a clear CX strategy could help us with that direction that Oriana is mentioning? Could it be our North Star in technology implementation as well as other initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about, when we talk about strategy, we always talk about, see, the customer and the tech aspect and how the two need to integrate really closely. And quite often that aspect is missed, especially in the world of transformation, where you go, do you know what? Let's put some AI in. That sounds exciting. And you kind of don't get to the bit around, well, what problem are we actually trying to solve here? And how does that integrate? When we think about chat, for instance, you quite often get to a place where you go, oh, let's put a chatbot in. Okay, great. What about the link between the chatbot and the person who takes over the chat? How does that work? Where's the customer element of that? And some people do that amazingly. Amazon recently did that really great. But sometimes you see things where, I saw one recently where a customer put, my partner has died. I need some help with closing the account. And the chatbot replied, great news. I can help with that. Like, ooh, wow. Ooh. So there's a huge bit. But the other angle that we're seeing, just going back to your last question, but one was, where's the kind of, how do we, like, is there customers that understand around the emotion side of things, and when they're talking to a robot? I'm actually seeing more and more of where customers are saying, you're just a robot, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to a person. And the person's going, no, I am a person, because some of the warmth isn't coming through, or the warmth or almost fake warmth is coming through on some chatbots. So there's confusion now. You send a message. I was desperately looking through my phone just then, trying to find, it was a great picture where someone had said, had received a message, I don't know, from their doctor or something like that, and they thought it was a chatbot, so they'd responded bibbly bobbly boo or something like that, and the person had gone, no, this is real, Mr. Jones. Could you please let us know if you're coming to the appointment? They've gone, oh my goodness, yes, sorry, I thought it was just a chatbot. But that kind of thing is where the lines get blurred. So in the strategy, you've got to work through, how do those things land? How do you program it right? And what are the edge cases? Things like, if somebody dies and they've got to close the account, that's not the account holder normally. They've died. How does that work? And how does that human empathy side of things really come through in the moment when they need it most? And often those aren't thought about. It's just, well, if we just put great news, I can help you, that will cover most things, won't it? But actually, in that sort of thing, that's a real miss, and often doesn't get looked at. So it's in that strategy, you've got to think through all of the elements and how the integration works seamlessly. So it's just a bit more work to do, I think, between tech and human, and making sure they work much more closely than they do at the moment. That's often missed.
And that is a strong connection to one of the questions we've been asked by the audience, is how can organizations foster a culture of emotional intelligence in the age of AI? And I believe this is where your CX strategy connects to those infinite outcomes that we have to think through as an organization. And maybe we even use technology to help us to create these different paths and outcomes. But it does root itself in a customer-centric culture where we intrinsically want to explore those routes and understand what is the impact on the customer. Does any of you have any examples of a great culture that also led to successful technology implementations?
I think more widely in the answer to this question here, how can organisations foster a culture of emotional intelligence in the age of AI, is around the training that you give to your leaders. So it's not necessarily focused purely on the emotional intelligence in the age of AI and kind of like how do you make tech more emotionally intelligent, but how do we make people more emotionally intelligent? That is such a strength that's so often missed. And if you really embed it into the culture of your business, and your leaders and your teams, there's a real focus on the growth of emotional intelligence and improving that, displaying it, rewarding it, recruiting for it. That then naturally creates a culture where your tech is built in that way and your processes, which include tech, have that too. So it's not necessarily about focusing so much on the tech putting in or connecting with it, but making sure that the whole culture is set up in this way. It's one of the bedrocks of it, would be my answer to that.
I think there's something in here which we absolutely have to raise, which is, does everyone have a clear understanding about what emotional intelligence is? Because emotional intelligence, as I have been taught by the guy that wrote the big book 26 years ago, is about emotional self-awareness. That's the first thing. And once you've got to a point where you're understanding your own emotion and you recognize why you might be feeling that way, then you move on to emotional self-management. So the ability to influence and balance your emotions that come up, because we are chemical, we're basically chemistry sets walking around with legs, and we are triggered by things. We feel great about some other things. We feel annoyed about other stuff. And once we've got into a habit of understanding the emotion we feel, managing, that's where empathy sits, ladies and gentlemen. It is the third pillar. We are good at empathy when we understand ourselves. And then after that, and this isn't a linear thing where you can tick a box, just by the way, it's a continual journey after the empathy development, because you know then that you're not just projecting your own thoughts onto other people, you are conscious of how you feel. And in the space of others, you then become good at relationship management. So that's the first thing I just needed to get out there. Do we understand what emotional intelligence is? The second thing is, to Sharon's point, absolutely. But I think that in addition to leadership, the front line needs to not only understand the skill and develop it, but they need to be empowered to use it, because very often they are penalized for using it. And so while they have this magnificent technology that can shorten their call and speed them up and give them the right information, they themselves need to recognize their emotion. They need to manage their emotion. They need to be able to apply empathy when it's relevant. So to that question that came up, I do think that there needs to be an understanding of what EI or EQ is. I think when you have that, you make intelligent, that's using that word quite a lot, intelligent understanding of how AI fits with our species. We make intelligent choices and we don't get overexcited running after the shiny thing. We think calmly and we use that amazing thing called consciousness. Consciousness is so complicated. No one has decided what it means. I've got 6 books that are that thick, very thick, on consciousness. So 1, know what it is. 2, empower your people with the skill and let them use it. And then be conscious in how you design the infiltration of AI, gradual usage with the right customer groups at the right time. But don't forget, we're really complicated people. And so if it's simple stuff, knock yourself out. If it gets more complicated, don't take the risk yet.
I want to ask you a tricky question, Sandra, if I may. So, as a business leader, it's probably easier to understand technology. Even though it's complex, it's quantifiable and it's possible to describe, and you can write specifications and kind of understand what it's going to do for you. When a business leader is presented with a challenge of emotional intelligence development, it all kind of gets a bit foggy and complicated. So, do you see companies investing at least the same effort and money to understand the emotional landscape before they run off after the next shiny thing, as you say?
It's a great question. So there's a number of ways to answer it. So just bear with me while I think of my list. The first thing is that you wouldn't always present it as emotional intelligence. You would present it as you will have less conflict, you will have greater innovation, you will make more money, you will reduce your costs. And by the way, that's emotional intelligence. That's one thing. The second thing is that we do see more empathy, in inverted commas, training. Now, the thing with empathy is that you have to practice. You can't learn it in the morning and then suddenly be a genius in the afternoon, contrary to belief. But there are many organizations that believe that the training they are giving their staff will take them to that place. So you do see more training out there. But here's the question. If I went back to those companies in 3 years' time, will that company be more empathetic? Probably not. But then there's this beautiful dance between brilliant technology that offers more nudges and advice to frontline staff that helps them build their own empathy. I spoke to a software company not long ago where the engagement score for staff went up something like 60% when this particular technology gave them empathy nudges, and it increased satisfaction by 33. Now, that melee of bit of training, bit of software, so it's a holistic view and it's done over time, is probably the best beautiful mixture. But you can't, in my opinion, you can't just get the technology to do it on its own, and you do have to ensure that it's done over time.
Great point. And I'd like to summarize with a comment we received from Serena from the audience. It feels like we are all going to need to work on ourselves in order to better serve our customers. So the notion around mental health and self-awareness becomes not only a pillar of personal success, but professional success. And I would add organizational success as well. Great comment, thank you. And I think it beautifully summarizes what Sandra was telling us about. A few other points raised in the audience that I'd really like to touch on. Ayman raises a good point around validity, and we all know ChatGPT sometimes makes up answers, and if you interrogate it enough, it would even admit that it actually makes it up. Sometimes we don't have the capability to distinguish whether the answer is right or wrong, or if the data fed into an algorithm is sufficient, robust, and correct in the first place. So we may be training technology to do the incorrect thing, in fact. Oriana, do you have any advice, case studies, or thoughts on this safe interpretation of data and use of technology?
Well, on the one hand, I would say that that is happening today outside of AI. Anyone who's ever heard that awful comparison that sometimes you hear in training about cutting the ends of the ham to bake it, right? I don't know if you've seen that, but like this recipe that gets passed down for generations, and it always starts, you must start your Christmas dinner by cutting the two ends of ham or whatever it is that you cook, and then at one point, one of the kids says, "But why do we do this?" And it turns out that it's because the oven that great grandmother had was too small to fit a whole house. Yeah. And so that happens. It's already happening outside of the world of AI. In terms of what you could do to improve your chances, I suppose, when it comes to implementing good learning models in the space of AI, I guess the advice that I would put forward is, nobody's expecting anyone to be an expert on anything, right? So call on your network. We're not supposed to be doing this alone. There are consultants out there, there are scientists out there, there are journalists, people who focus on ethics, whatever it is that you feel a little bit stuck with, ask. There's a massive community out there, and ultimately we all want to solve this problem together, right? And collaboration is what's required. So ask the question, find the best advisor that you can, and also try to build in fail-safe systems, right? And again, us as humans, we don't always get it right. Like, let's think about fake news and people sharing memes, taking them as fact. Are we perfect? No, we're not. And yet we're modeling AI after who we are, right? So, try to have a holistic approach. Try to have multiple lenses through which you have a look at it. And to me, what that ultimately comes down to in one word is diversity. So have a diversified set of advice and have a diversified way of cross-checking information as you move along. Hopefully that answers the question somewhat.
I love this point, and I can illustrate with a personal example. I have a teenage daughter, and she sort of explained to me how the algorithms work in a very simple way. She likes Taylor Swift, so everything she gets on social media confirms that everyone likes Taylor Swift. There are so many people who like Taylor Swift, millions of them. And when she goes to school, those 30 people in her class may not like Taylor Swift, but they are the minority, because millions of people, everyone else clearly likes her because that's what Instagram tells her. So there is no reason to listen to those silly classmates who don't even relate to millions of other people in the world. And I'm very pleased that the new generation realizes this is not the real world. This is a made up algorithm that confirms your point of view. So the value that networking, the real life networking brings, is that you hear a point of view that may be different to yours. And it takes emotional intelligence to recognize that it is valid. It is less fake or not fake at all. And you should be considering this diversified approach. So I really like and appreciate what you're saying, Ariane, is that a big part of getting technology right is working as a community and trying to find the answers to questions from diverse perspectives. Do you guys concur with that? Sharon, Sandra, do you have experiences that confirm or maybe not confirm that?
I think this comes back to that beefy topic of consciousness just for a second. I think that, and I had a really interesting conversation with someone about instinct. Now, this is totally another webinar, but we absolutely do, as a species, have an ability to pick up when something isn't quite right, but we absolutely do have to be tuned into it. So I suppose what I'm saying is, if we're all chaotically busy, we may not actually spot some of these things that we should question. So we have got to give ourselves the space to be tuned into that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know if you've seen this film. I think it's called Social Network, but it was an eye-opener because it describes how data, trend, algorithms, all in social media work. And I should recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it, because it's shocking. Because the people behind some of these platforms don't even let their own kids onto those platforms. And when you understand that, and to Sharon's point earlier about manipulation, you know, that whole Machiavellian aspect of emotional intelligence, the dark side of emotional intelligence, you've got to have your wits about you. And I think that when there's so much pressure at a much, and again, this is massive generalization, but definitely as you go through life stages, there's more pressure to conform, to debate, to have a view. And I worry sometimes that those views are too heavily influenced by utter nonsense. There it is, I just said it.
Thank you, Sandra.
I was, as you were saying that, Sandra, I was thinking about the complexity of how we speak. I know we're not face to face in this moment, but I can see, like when you said it's this big and you had to kind of move your hand because it disappeared. And earlier I kind of finished my conversation by kind of waving my finger and hoped you know what I was talking about. All of those things, you know, the context behind something. I mean, how often have we had a conversation on WhatsApp or text or email, which, you know, the real meaning or the original intent had been completely lost. And as you say, you know, a piece of fake news that's been taken completely out of context and landed somewhere on social media and suddenly this is what's happened. You know, that's so dangerous. And when we think about AI and the you know, the message that it's got to come, messages that have got to come through, that's where there's a real risk. We as humans already, you know, get confused, or even face to face, you know, we just miss the slight intonation or something, and we walk away, and then a day later we think, damn it, that's what they meant. And it, you know, so even if we're doing it face to face, we miss that, even with all the waving of hands and everything else that I'm currently doing. So how do you do, like thinking about chatbots, which is, yeah, I find that easiest to think about when I think about kind of AI and customer and employee kind of discussions. But if you think, I saw a study the other day that said there's only 50% accuracy where they were doing this test of people being able to spot sarcasm in an email. 50%. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I kind of thought, oh, yeah, that's probably right. How easy is it to understand sarcasm? And sometimes when you read a whole chain, sometimes you see them on LinkedIn where someone's going, no, please tell me more. And you think, oh, goodness, this isn't going well. You can see the frustration. But in that moment, as that, you know, as it's going through and following through, it just isn't coming through at all. And person A and person B are in completely different worlds. If you're trying to keep that customer and this is what's landing. So that I mean, how that is programmed and how that evolves in an AI space, especially around customer and employee retention, is going to be incredibly interesting when we struggle so much often as humans in kind of normal communication when we're face to face. I was also thinking around you know, if I'm embarrassed, my face goes bright red. If I'm sad, I cry. You know, those things, that's how we are as humans. And there's a real survival instinct there. If, you know, if I've got a look of fear on my face right now because there's a tiger in the bush, the three of you are going to go, oh, Sharon looks scared. What's happening? I better run. The whole point of, you know, why we're built and the emotions is there for a reason. But, you know, my red face because I'm angry doesn't come across when I'm stamping on my keyboard. So how do those things translate in a digital world? All those aspects, all the non-verbal, the gestures, the syntax, those get lost, and those are often what makes us human and connect us to one another and make things meaningful. So that's going to be a very interesting area to delve into as AI and other technologies become much more advanced and think around that emotional side of things.
I can very much relate to this, especially as someone who works across geographies and cultures. And it's hard enough to explain sarcasm within one culture, but it's very, very difficult to understand the nuances of different languages, especially when they're literally lost in translation. And I think that AI, particularly AI in customer support, will help with those. It is possible, potentially possible, maybe not just yet, but potentially possible to detect and alert humans about particular signs or emotions that would be more typical to one culture versus perhaps the culture where that particular agent is based. And that kind of brings us to another question from the audience. Do you feel like companies expect the introduction of AI to circumvent the need to pursue EQ training for staff and agents? Maybe AI will be a good enough prompt for people.
I mean, I'm looking at that with horror because personally, I'm thinking, oh goodness, no. We need EQ. Plus, I mean, someone rings somebody, or you still got the human aspect. The AI customer service solution can't do it all, and it's the outcomes of it and the trouble spot, whatever it is that it's got to be done. You need a human to program the ins and the outs. Sorry, I'm not saying this very well. I think it's just that, oh my goodness, please no. You need EQ, and you need the team and the people to have that high level of EQ to make sure the whole of it works well from end to end, not just the piece in the middle that the customer might interact with digitally. And I can see Sandra is desperate to say something, so I'm going to just shut up now.
I think it's a brilliant question, because I am aware that some companies have bought in solutions as a method to increase the empathy of their staff. But I have something else to say, because I think that the way in which we're talking about AI is an interesting one. So I remember speaking to Adrian Swimsco. We all know Adrian. A few months ago now, quite a while ago, and he was talking about early on pointing AI into the organization in order for it to organize its information to make life easier. And at the time, I'd never thought about it. And then I was like, oh, of course, because agents, we know, switch from one screen to the next. They have to muddle through a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. Imagine that. How incredible would that be, where this system organizes the most relevant answers with the most brilliant connections, because an agent can't possibly know everything and doesn't want to go through 5 different screens, which then frees up some time for them to think about their emotional self-awareness, moving on to self-management. So I think that the application of AI is an interesting debate in itself. We're talking about the customer interaction coming in and how it's influenced by AI. Let's think as well about organization and how we can free up more time for those amazing front line to then take some time to invest and have much richer conversations, because they're not wasting 55 seconds every 3 minutes trying to find the right information. So brilliant question, and sorry about going on a bit.
I think it also in part answers another question. Thank you, Mas, for posting it. Shouldn't technology be balanced to help the employees to deliver AI and CX? And we are largely focused on frontline employees, but I think there would be other applications of technology for those who do not interact with customers directly, but certainly play a role in delivering customer experience. What do you guys think?
Absolutely, and as Sandra said, we've kind of talked in this around the whole direct interaction of AI speaking directly or connecting directly with a customer, and that's been some of the discussions we've had. But when AI is used in a way to collect, condense information and data to give an employee a better structured way of handling something, or to take all of the engineer appointments and put them in the best, most optimized way to get the most customer visits or the quickest customer resolution, absolutely spot on. There's some real magic in using AI. I saw quite a clever thread the other day where somebody was saying, you know what, I have ADHD and I need something or somebody to stand at my side and motivate me. And somebody went, well, just use ChatGPT. Just tell it, I want you to be my cheerleader. I've got this list of things I need to do. Tell me in a I can't remember, it was Robin Williams sort of voice, because that was what worked for them. Be my motivator. I need to do the dishes and I need to do this. Be my cheerleader. And the way it responded back was, well done. Right now you've done that. How do you feel? Excellent. Now go and do the next thing. And it was so motivational how it was done. And I just thought that is so clever. And we're only just scratching the surface of what AI can do. And of course, we've had lots of discussions around, oh my goodness, we need to be really careful. But when it's working well and it answers the FAQs like this and gives the right answers, and the customer gets exactly what they need without having to wait 20 minutes on the phone, and they know that the interactive piece between, okay, I've reached the kind of the threshold of what AI can do for me now, and I now need to speak to somebody because it's an edge case, that bit is really well done. It can just be amazing. And as Sandra says, it can really free up the humans to do the bit that only humans can do. But all the other bit, if it can handle that, amazing. And it can really help an employee think, oh, I don't need to know every single detail of all the insurance models or whatever, because I've got AI database does that for me. I just need to know how to respond in the right way to keep this customer happy, and that I feel credible in, or to them, that they know that they're getting the best deal and the best from us. I don't need to know the ins and outs. So that really does help when you kind of tie it all together. But it's that, for me, it's the interaction between what it's being used for and the way that the employee deals with it and the way that the customer sees it. It should all be seamless. And I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's where we're going.
Certainly very exciting, isn't it? We're coming back to the concept of CX strategy. So define where is it that you're going, map the journey, including the customer journey and what you want them to do and feel, how you expect the employees to support that, what is it that they need to know, and then deploy the systems that would help them along the way. And technology, or AI specifically, is just one of those instruments that can help employees and organizations become more customer centric, but needs to be deployed with caution because we're not quite there yet in terms of maturity. I'd like to round up this discussion with 7 words of wisdom from each of you. What is your best advice, put in 7 words, that you would give to companies looking to implement AI and other digital technologies? So I'll let you gather your thoughts, and just because this is the order on my screen, I'll go to Oriana.
Well, I can think of lots of things that I could share. The main thing for me is to let customer outcomes be the only guide. That's it. That should be it.
Love that. Let customer outcomes be the only guide. Perfect. Sandra, what is your 7-word advice?
So I really struggled with this, Olga. Not happy because 7 words. Oh my gosh, that's the most difficult task. Right.
I apologize, Sandra.
No, it's all good. Right. So following on, how does AI serve, underline in bold flashing lights, different customer needs? So very similar to Oriana's, but it's in service of. And that's why I think that organizationally, which of your customer groups will hugely benefit, which ones will be freaked out, and which ones will dip into it when they wish. Final point on that is, how well do you really know your customers? So please don't apply this blanket. Think about it and do the right thing to learn, because people who want to use it will use it and they'll give you so much insight. But really think about it. It's not a carte blanche.
Mm, great point. Echoes what Sharon said previously. What's the way out? Right? If I really don't want to interact with your bot, if I don't want you to know too much about me and use it for data processing, what's the way out for me as a customer? And how do you comply with my wishes? Great one. Thank you, Sandra. Sharon.
Mine was quite similar, so I've tweaked mine just now so that it's not the same message. So somehow I've landed on 7 words. Remember the transitions between human and machine. Oh goodness, that was 6. Oh wow. So I was
You
really
get
thinking.
one credit.
I was thinking about the interfaces, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but that is where we fall down. And whether it's digital or whatever it looks like, it's the baton passes between employees that quite often we deliver a lower par experience than it should be, whether that's for employees, customers, whoever that we're dealing with. So those transitions between start to finish, end to end, and as we've mentioned already, test test to death, test every single, test the different scenarios, test with real life, and make sure that when you test the front facing system that both a customer and an employee will use as part of the service, that you test it over and over with different people and make sure that you not only test but do something with it when it's not working right. Don't just go, that's all right, it's off the shelf, it will work fine, let's just crack on. Test it and then tweak it and tailor it and keep it learning, keep it going, don't stop.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for sharing this discussion and these thoughts. We had a very active audience today. Thank you, dear audience, for joining us, being an active part of this discussion. Check out CX Panda content on digital CX and how it helps the organization, the stakeholders, the employees, and the customers to get where we all want to get within our CX and commercial strategies. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you all with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.